What if the Byzantines won the Battle of Manzikert? In our own timeline, after the split up of the Roman Empire and collapse of the Western Roman Empire in 476, the Eastern Roman Empire, later Byzantine Empire, would become the successor of Rome and would be a great power, especially under Justinian the Great, but would start to decline as time goes on. Under Basil II, the empire would see a renaissance and reconquer the Balkans, but shortly thereafter would lose Anatolia to the Seljuk Turks after the Battle of Manzikert in 1071. The Seljuks originated from Central Asia and would conquer Persia and then Anatolia from the Byzantines. They are responsible for the later Ottoman Empire and why Turks and Azuris live separate from their fellow Turkic people in Central Asia. This accelerated the Byzantine decline, and they would collapse shortly thereafter in the Fourth Crusade in 1204 and then again in 1453 to the Ottoman Turks. But what if that didn't happen? What if the Byzantines won the Battle of Manzikert? In this timeline, the Byzantines don't fall into the fake retreat of the Seljuks and manage to outmaneuver them and are the ones who destroy the Seljuks, with their Sultan Alp Arslan becoming their prisoner of war. This defeat destroyed the Seljuk army, and they halt any military campaigns, with Malik Shah still becoming Sultan, but 1 year earlier. The Byzantine Empire would maintain its grip over Anatolia and the Balkans, and Romanos IV remains in power until his death on November 27, 1095. His son Nikephoros Diogenes becomes emperor at just 26 and would remain as emperor for over almost 4 decades before finally dying in 1134. His son Constantine Ducas becomes emperor until his own death 1169, and his son Michael VII becomes emperor until 1185, when Isaac II Angelos takes over, bringing an end to the Ducas dynasty and stating the Angelos dynasty. The Seljuks meanwhile consolidate power in their already existing domains in Persia, Mesopotamia and Syria. Gradually the Persians and Turks would mix into a Turco-Persian ethno-linguistic group. This, however, doesn't protect them from the Mongols. Out of the ashes, one Beylik would arise above them all, one that after a civil war thanks to the Timurids would conquer Persia, Mesopotamia, Syria, Hejaz, North Africa, but also Central Asia and maybe Afghanistan and parts of India instead of Europe. The Crusades wouldn't happen as they happened due of requests of Byzantine Emperor Alexios I Komnenos. This might also lead to the Northern Crusades probably don't happen. This causes the Baltics and Finland to stay pagan. Maybe at one point these lands might get conquered by outside forces, but that would be much later, and there might not be a big push to Christianize them. Silesia and Pomerania would never become part of the Holy Roman Empire and stay Polish. The Holy Roman Empire would, however, not be involved in this, and thus the Teutonic Order doesn't conquer Prussia, and so Prussia itself doesn't exist. The Hohenzollern, however, do rule over Brandenburg, but it wouldn't become a kingdom, and it wouldn't be strong enough to oppose Austria. The 7 Years' War, assuming it still happens, would just result in them losing Silesia to Austria again, assuming they get it in the first place. The Europeans wouldn't set sail to find a shorter way to India, as they did so in our own timeline, because of Ottoman control over Constantinople, and so the natives might stay around a little bit longer. This does cause Spain not to become a dominant power, as they lack the gold from the New World. In this timeline, the Renaissance might not happen as it happened due to Byzantines fleeing to Western Europe, mainly Italy, and show of their knowledge. The Reformation, on the other hand, does happen, and the Holy Roman Empire is split Catholic and Protestant. This split would lead to a rise in tensions that boil over in 1618 in Prague, leading to the 30 Years' War. In this timeline, the Spanish don't have copious amounts of gold and can't finance all that fighting, and so they ultimately sign a white peace with Sweden in 1633, and the war is remembered as the 15 Years' War. Just like in Otel, it promised religious freedom to Catholics, Lutherans, and Calvinists, and also sees Sweden take Bremen and West Pomerania, but unlike Otel, France doesn't make any gains, and the power of the emperor isn't heavily diminished. Hungary maintains its sovereignty and without Habsburg rule might become Protestant. In the Balkans, Croatia would become due to the Byzantines Orthodox, and Bosnia and Albania don't become Muslim. Without a great Turkish war, the anti-Swedish coalition can declare war on Sweden just after Charles XI died, and while Charles XII was still 14. Sweden is ultimately defeated and loses Scania to Denmark, Livonia to Poland, and Ingria and Estonia to Russia. Russia, however, might not become an empire as it did so as it saw itself as the continuation of Rome due to their shared Orthodox faith, but the Eastern Roman Empire still exists, and so it doesn't make any sense. Spain and especially Portugal, which might not even exist as it could still be a part of Spain, would own less in favor of England, France, the Netherlands and the Byzantines. With colonization of the Americas just kicking off in the 17th century, the 7 Years' War doesn't happen. Without a 7 Years' War, Britain wouldn't own Bengal, from which it would colonize India. Another change is that the American Revolution also doesn't happen, and Great Britain holds on to its colonies. The French Revolution, too, doesn't happen, and the Bourbon monarchy stays in power. In this timeline, Frederick the Not-So-Great wouldn't be famous or influential. He also wouldn't be able to strike an alliance with Russia and Austria aimed at Poland, so it might continue to stick around. With the Industrial Revolution, the European powers would colonize even harder and partition India with France in the south, United Kingdom in the north. The British would push the Ottomans to the Indus River. At the same time, the Russias would push the Ottomans out of most of Central Asia, but the two of them decide to keep them as a buffer, so they don't border each other, just like with Afghanistan in OTL. When China suffers from its century of humiliation, the Byzantines would join in on it, and would take Tsingtao and a part of Tianjin. During the partition of Africa, France and the United Kingdom still get the most, but Angola, Mozambique, and Guinea-Bissau fall to Iberia, Namibia and Tanganyika, Somalia and Eritrea to the United Kingdom, and Togoland and Cameroon to France. Lastly, the Byzantine Empire manages to take Tunisia and Libya. During the 1908 Young Turk Revolution, the Byzantines and British would intervene to expand their domain. After over 1,000 years, the Byzantines managed to retake Syria and the Holy Land, and the United Kingdom took the oil-rich Mesopotamia and Khuzestan. The monarchy would endure and the nation would liberalize, and given that almost all of its citizens are Iranian or Turkic, which in this timeline melted, nobody would be discriminated or even genocide by the government in Tabriz. The Byzantine Empire, however, do crave Italy, which is in the sphere of influence of Austria, and Egypt and Mesopotamia, which are in the sphere of influence of the United Kingdom. A potential great war would be between the Byzantine Empire, Russia and France on one side, and the United Kingdom, Holy Roman Empire, Iberia and Japan on the other. The Ottomans could join either side, and both are just as likely to win. If the Byzantines win, they'd expand their realm in Egypt, Mesopotamia and Italy with France, and the Byzantines splitting the Holy Roman Empire between them. France would take all of India, and Russia would have free reign in Japan. If they lose, then the HRE would expand into western France, the Byzantines would lose Syria and Libya to the United Kingdom, and Russia the Far East to Japan. During the second half of the 20th century, many colonies would gain independence, like Carthago in modern-day Libya, and Tunisia, Mexico or Parana in modern-day Brazil. But the Byzantines fight against Syrian rebels who are supported by the Hashemites in Arabia and Iraq, and eventually it does manage to gain independence with the Antioch Accords. The Hashemite kingdom of Syria gains independence, but the Holy Land becomes an international zone. It would have 3 presidents, one to represent its Christian population, one to represent its Muslim population, and one to represent its Jewish population. Arabia, Iraq and Syria would unify into the Hashemite kingdom of Arabia, which would become a third major player in the Middle East alongside the Byzantines and Ottomans. The Ottomans are without Shah Ismail Sunni and not Shia, and so Iraq and Azerbaijan might be Sunni as well, making Shia almost non-existent. The Byzantine Empire is currently led by Emperor Pavlos, who took over just this year after his father Constantine the 22nd died just this year. The Byzantine Empire is a powerful nation and stretched from modern-day Croatia to modern-day Turkey, and it is a great power on the world stage as it has a strong economy with a wealthy average population that is also huge for European standards. It might also have nukes. The Roman Empire in this timeline still exists after over 2 millennia, and the Turks live in the Iranian plateau, rather than Anatolia and East Thrace. If you liked the episode, leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.